I worked together with my uncle Gu Xing to run a seafood wholesale business. After working hard throughout the year, our net profit was 2.85 million yuan. By the time of year-end financial reports and dividends, he would only give me 120,000. The stall belongs to me. I was also the one who paid the upfront costs for it. Gu Xing placed that stack of cash in front of me. His tone was light and casual, as if it was something that should be expected. You only did some physical work. 10,000 is already a considerable amount. I didn't argue anything. I just put the money into my pocket. Okay, whatever you say, that's fine. The contempt in his eyes was impossible to hide. He was convinced that I was nothing more than a cheap labor force that he could exploit at will. But he never expected that, soon after, I would use those $12,000 to rent the large cold storage room located right across from his stall. That room covers a surface of 500 square meters. After signing the lease agreement, I pulled down the curtain of the cold storage room. I looked towards Gu Xing, who stood on the opposite side of the street, with a face that was suddenly pale. In the future, we should each do our own things without interfering with each other. That night, I heard a loud noise coming from the stall next to us. It was he who smashed the calculator onto the ground with great force. Throughout those 365 days this year, we took turns staying awake overnight, spending almost all our time in the seafood ponds, without ever getting a proper night's sleep. The total flow rate exceeded 5 million units, with a net profit of 2.85 million units. These figures are not exaggerated at all. But Gu Xing remained firm in his determination that both the stall and the capital should belong to him. You just need to work hard. There are jobs available on the streets, where you can earn a monthly salary of up to 10,000. You'll get food and housing, and social security benefits as well. I'll offer you 12,000 per year. You should be satisfied with that. Replenishing inventory, dealing with losses, and collecting overdue payments, all the various tasks fall on me. The refrigeration equipment broke down, and the repair costs amounted to over $30,000. I spent the night working to fix it myself. Some of the facts he mentioned are true. The stall was actually registered under his name. But of the remaining 2.73 million yuan in profits, most of it was earned through hard work and sacrifice. My eyes were filled with red veins, and my entire body smelled of the sea, an odor that couldn't be removed no matter what. I suppressed the anger that surged within me. Okay, Gu Xing, I don't want to argue with you. On the first day of the new year, there will be a batch of top-quality lobsters at the dock. The market conditions are very good. You should go and take a look at them earlier. Gu Xing said that, then turned his attention back to his own matters. I didn't go home. With 120,000 in my pocket, I didn't dare to return. If my mother asked how much money was divided in the year-long business partnership, and if there was a mutual agreement to split the profits evenly, I simply wouldn't know how to answer those questions. When we first started working together, Gu Xing patted me on the shoulder and promised me something. Nephew, we are family. When doing business together, we should share the profits equally. As long as I have something to eat, I won't let you suffer any losses. By the end of the year, when it was time to actually get something tangible out of it, the bond between the family was completely destroyed by his words about physical work. I dialed the phone number of the market leasing manager. The cold storage room across from us, measuring 500 square meters, requires an initial rent plus a deposit. The total cost is exactly 120,000 yuan. During the past year, I have been actively working on business-related matters. I managed to establish contact with the downstream suppliers on my own, and we were able to sign the contracts within 3 days, allowing us to start operations right away. That night, I placed the cash on the desk of the leasing manager, and completed all the necessary procedures immediately. Holding this contract in my hands, I finally no longer have to leave my fate in the hands of others. At 4 o'clock in the early morning of New Year's Day, the sea breeze on the dock was freezing cold, making my bones ache from the cold. I arrived 2 hours earlier than usual. As soon as the fishing boat landed, I walked straight up to the captain. Captain Cirrus, I want to get all of these top-quality lobsters. The captain was momentarily stunned. Xiao Yuan, hasn't Gu Xing already made a reservation for this batch of goods? I took out a thick stack of cash. I'm now working independently. I'm offering a price that's 5 points higher than his. I can handle all the sorting and loading tasks myself. You don't need to worry about those details. Silvers remained silent for a few seconds, then nodded heavily. By the time Gu Xing rushed to the dock, the entire boat full of high-quality lobsters had already been loaded onto my refrigerated truck. He stood on the empty dock, his face as white as rusted iron. Lu Yuan, what do you mean by that? I stepped through the carriage door. Uncle, it's my turn to ask you this question. You once said that one should earn a living through their own skills. Today, it's my turn to use my skills to get things done. In the new year, everyone should use their own methods to achieve their goals. The engine roared as I drove away from the dock. In the rearview mirror, Gu Xing's figure became smaller and smaller. I knew that thin layer of kinship between us was completely torn apart. The lobsters were transported back to the cold storage, and the staff worked overnight to sort and process them. Each lobster weighed more than 1.5 pounds. Their claws were plump, and their tentacles were intact. I strictly controlled the temperature during the temporary storage in ice water, ensuring that any losses were minimized to 0. At 5 a.m., I sent out messages to the market vendors. In less than half an hour, a dozen or so familiar vendors gathered outside the cold storage. Over the past year, they have encountered many difficulties, and I have always been there to offer them help. I remember these people, and they also remember me. The inspection is complete, and orders are arriving one after another. I sold the products at normal market prices, without holding any stock or raising prices. In just 2 hours, the entire batch of lobsters was sold out, resulting in a net profit of 43,000. My initial investment has been successfully recovered. My seafood wholesale cold storage facility has officially opened. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Gu Xing called me, but I simply refused to answer. Word spreads rapidly in the market. Everyone knows that I've broken up with my uncle and started my own business. Gu Xing spreads his threats everywhere, threatening all merchants in the market that dare to supply me with goods. Those merchants will never be able to get any orders from me in the future. Under pressure, the vendors started calling people at noon to cancel their orders. Their words were filled with embarrassment, and they used various family-related reasons as excuses. I won't ask for reasons. I will refund the full amount of the deposit without making anyone feel embarrassed. At 3 p.m., Gu Xing along with several old vendors from the market rushed to the door of my cold storage facility. He pointed his finger at my door, shouting insults at me, calling me ungrateful and a betrayer. He spread rumors everywhere that it was he who brought me from the countryside to teach me how to do business. But instead, I repaid his kindness with hostility, stealing his business from him. People gathered around, eager to see a conflict between us. I didn't argue with him about those 12,000 in dividends. I simply looked up calmly. What do you want to do here? Gu Xing was stunned by my questions, and quickly uttered a bunch of unpleasant words. Just wait, even the captains of all the docks and the major customers in the market won't dare to cooperate with you. Your cold storage facility won't last long before you have to close down. After saying those harsh words, he walked away with the other vendors. The crowd gradually dispersed, and all around was filled with whispers and murmurs. I stood at the door, with my employees looking very tense. I have been working in this industry for a whole year now. I know exactly which ships will dock at what time, and which suppliers need what products. Gu Xing thought that by cutting off the local supply sources, he could trap me. But he doesn't understand that business is based on genuine relationships, not forced compliance through intimidation. That night, I hung up the signboard of Lu Yuan Seafood Wholesale. The signboard with large characters clearly displayed my business, making it easily visible under the streetlights. I also posted a job advertisement for warehouse workers, a monthly salary of 12,000 yuan, with meals and accommodation provided. All necessary social insurance benefits were included, and there was also a performance-based year-end bonus. Early the next morning, a young man named Tobias came to apply for the job. He had just returned from the countryside in search of a way to make a living. His eyes showed a determination that reminded me of myself a year ago. His hands were covered with calluses, indicating that he was willing to endure hard work. I hired him on the spot, and he started working that same afternoon. I stood in the cold storage room, counting the inventory. The refrigeration system was running smoothly, and the temperature was firmly maintained at -5 degrees Celsius. From across the street, I could see Gu Xing's stall. People were still coming and going, and the business seemed to be booming. But I know well that those old and malfunctioning refrigeration equipment wouldn't be able to function at all without me. Last summer, Unit No. 3 was almost completely destroyed. It was me who spent the night disassembling and replacing the compressor to save it. Gu Xing only knows how to handle financial matters and manage relationships. He has no idea at all about repairing machines. In my phone's contact list, there are several contact details of foreign ship captains. He thought that by blocking the local docks, he could kill me. But he forgot that the ocean is vast, and there are always multiple docks available. As night falls, I lock the door of the cold storage facility. At 3 a.m. tomorrow, I will drive 200 kilometers to Show Spot. There, the captain has left me with a batch of fresh coral trout fish. On the third day after opening the store, my mother came over. She was carrying a thermos with food, and her hair had become much whiter compared to the New Year's season. I was counting the goods with Tobias, and when I saw her, the account book in my hand almost fell out of my hands. The mother said nothing much. She placed the thermos on the table, containing the soup that I love to drink the most, sparerib soup. She looked around at the vast cold storage room, her gaze falling on the sign on the wall, her eyes filling with tears. I sent Tobias out to do some work, and brought in a chair for her to sit on. After a long silence, she spoke. "Did you really start fighting with your uncle?" I nodded my head, without offering any further explanations. The mother sighed deeply. Gu Xing went home yesterday and cried for 2 hours. He said that you're completely useless. He said that you've abandoned your roots, stolen his business, taken away his sources of supply. You're constantly opposing him in every way. He asked me to persuade you to transfer the lease agreement for the cold storage, so that you can go back and work for him. He also promised to increase your profit share to 200,000 per year. I didn't interrupt her. I opened the drawer and handed her an envelope made of craft paper. Inside the envelope are the records of my work over the past year. There are all the purchase orders, receipts for repairs, records related to debt collection, and logs regarding equipment maintenance. Everything is complete, and important items are marked with red ink. On July 3rd last year, the compressor of one of the units broke down. I worked without sleep for 36 hours straight to repair it. Meanwhile, Gu Xing spent the whole time enjoying himself in the air-conditioned room. In September, a restaurant that owed me 150,000 yuan failed to pay me. It took me half a month to get that money back. In November at 2 a.m., I arrived at the port with 3 tons of seafood. I had to unload the goods by myself, which caused me to hurt my waist. I had to rest for a whole month before he came to check the accounts the next day. In name, it's a 2-person team. But in reality, I'm the one who does most of the work. The annual total turnover is 5 million, with a net profit of 285,000. In the end, he gave me only 12,000, saying that I was just doing physical work. The mother flipped through the documents page by page, her hands trembling uncontrollably, tears streaking across the pages. She closed the envelope, stood up, and said nothing more. She simply walked away. I knew where she was going. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, chaos spread across the market. My mother stopped in front of Gu Xing's stall, and questioned him in front of all the merchants passing by. I asked him how much he had invested throughout the entire year. I also questioned how he could calculate the 120,000 yuan in dividends. Gu Xing opened his mouth and said that he didn't understand the concept of gratitude. All the money from the stall belonged to him. He shouldn't have been greedy. Mother sneered. When you started this stall, you borrowed 50,000 in startup capital from me. Do you still remember that debt? My son worked hard for an entire year, yet you refused to give him any proper compensation at all. At the end of the year, you just gave him 120,000 and dismissed him. Is that really something you can be proud of? Gu Xing's face turned red like a pig's liver. He tried to argue, but couldn't say a single word. My mother passed by the entrance to my cold storage facility. She stopped to look at me. There was no trace of blame in her eyes, only concern and a silent acknowledgement. Just 3 words. Dear best son. That night, Tobias helped me familiarize myself with the entire process of the business. We checked and sorted the goods, determining the freshness of the seafood. He took notes carefully and kept asking questions. Watching him, I felt like I saw myself from back then. I thought that as long as one was willing to work hard and sweat, relatives would treat them with sincerity. At this moment, I fully understand that the only thing we can truly rely on in this world is ourselves. On the other side of the street, Gu Xing's stall is still lit up late at night. Inside his glass window, he sits alone, staring at his ledger. Meanwhile, the refrigeration equipment keeps making strange noises, and the temperature display screen is flaring wildly. The problem is quite serious indeed. I have retracted my gaze and locked the library doors. There is another batch of goods to handle tomorrow, and I don't have any extra energy to spare for sympathizing with my competitors. On the 5th day of opening the business, I encountered a situation where the supply of goods was blocked. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I arrived at the dock as usual to pick up the goods. Captain Silas saw me and could only shake his head in frustration. Xiao Yuan, I'm sorry. Gu Xing has offered a price that is 20% higher than the market rate. He has reserved all the fishing rights for today at the local dock. I asked each of the other captains, and all of them gave the same answer. Gu Xing, along with 3 other major fishermen businesses in the market, spent a lot of money to purchase all the local fishing boats. Their intention was to completely push me into bankruptcy. I stood on the empty dock, with the cigarette burning down to the filter. When I returned to the cold storage, Tobias saw that I came back with nothing in my hands, his face filled with worry. I told him to go back and rest first. I sat alone in the office, searching through the contact list. The local dock is closed, so I need to find another way out. 2 months ago, I met Captain Alaric by chance. At that time, his goods were unsaleable, and local wholesalers refused to take them. I helped him analyze the market situation and advised him to directly deal with individual traders, thereby clearing his inventory in just 3 days. When we parted ways, he told me that he would always be there for me if I faced any difficulties in the future. I dialed Alaric's number, and he was still asleep. I didn't bother to explain anything. I simply told him that I wanted to take control of all the cash he had in hand. The payment should be made right there, and the transportation arrangements should be arranged by myself. I didn't hide the difficulties I faced. I told the truth about Gu Xing monopolizing the local, thereby suppressing me. Alaric muttered under his breath. That's a rather dishonorable method. Let's wait for more information. After dawn, I drove for 3 hours to reach the southern dock. I arrived at 10 in the morning. Alaric was already waiting on the shore. The refrigerated truck was filled with coral trout and hairy crabs that had just been brought ashore. The crabs weren't particularly large, but their freshness was impeccable. Their gills were bright red, and their legs were strong and muscular. I transferred 180,000 immediately, accepting all of the goods without any conditions. Alaric patted my shoulder. Xiao Yuan, you're really brave. Gu Xing's tactics will surely lead to self-destruction sooner or later. From now on, we will prioritize supplying you with goods along this route in Nan Dock. He told me that Nan. In the north, many wholesalers haven't yet noticed this area. The supply is stable, and the price of goods here is 10% lower than that in the local area. The crew members here are honest and follow rules and regulations. They don't use any dishonest tactics. Gu Xing thought that locking the local dock would be enough to trap me. He didn't realize that there was another way out. The ship was loaded with goods and rushed back to the market. Tobias waited at the door. We worked overnight to unload and sort the goods, and then stored them at low temperatures. The quality of the goods is excellent, and the cost of acquiring them is even lower. My quoted prices are 5 percentage points lower than the market average. I contacted past customers, and after inspecting the goods, there were continuous orders coming in. By 10 p.m. Most of the goods had been sold, and the cash flow returned amounted to 150,000. The next morning, I went to the southern dock again. Alaric introduced to me 2 captains of the ocean shipping routes, Solon and Orson. The supply of goods became more stable and abundant. I promised that if the quality met the standards, all payments would be made in cash, without any delays. After several conversations, the captains reached a consensus. Young people dare to take risks. We at One High value trust and integrity. As long as you always provide payment in cash, we will give priority to supplying you with goods. The handshake sealed the partnership, and the stone that weighed on my heart is finally lifted. On the way back, Tobias called. Gu Xing spent a lot of time near the cold storage facility, observing us as we unloaded the goods. Many merchants were curious and tried to find out about my sources of supply. Gu Xing tries to exhaust me by raising the local procurement costs. But the more he blocks my external supply channels, the wider my options become. With a stable supply source at the southern port, my costs are naturally 10% lower than his, giving me a price advantage. In the following week, I would leave at 3 a.m. every day to pick up goods, and return to the market before 10 a.m. On the 10th day since the store opened, Alaric asked to meet me. At a food stall by the dock, after several rounds of drinking, he got straight to the point. We've done the calculations. We trust your reputation, and we'd like to negotiate an exclusive supply agreement with you. Together with Soren and Orson, we own 5 ships, which account for nearly half of the total cargo volume at the South Wharf. The conditions are as follows. You must maintain a minimum purchase volume of 200,000 units per week. In return, we can offer you a further 5% discount on prices. I quickly weighed the options in my mind. With a weekly purchase of 200,000 units, the financial pressure is significant. But once I obtain the exclusive rights, I will have control over the supply. Gu Xing raises prices locally, while I have access to a stable supply at low prices. This advantage is something that my competitors will never be able to match. I signed a 3-month contract with Alaric on the spot. After signing the contract, the captain specifically reminded me that there were already people who were secretly bidding to take control of the South Dock route. Behind this, there was definitely Gu Xing involved. Business relies on reputation. We won't betray you, but you should be careful yourself. Guangxing has been operating in this area for many years, and they have quite a few tricks up their sleeves. I nodded and noted it down. It was already 9 p.m. when we returned to the market. Tobias was still sorting out the goods. There were 3 more orders from merchants that day. There was also a chain restaurant owner who wanted to establish a long-term supply relationship with us. The next day, I visited Mr. Vaughn. He operates 2 chain restaurants, and they consume a large amount of seafood. I had been purchasing goods from Gu Xing for a long time, but recently the loss of goods from Gu Xing has been extremely high. I have made several complaints, but none of them have been resolved. I took him to inspect the cold storage facilities in person. All the seafood met the required standards. After reviewing the contract for exclusive supply from Nan, Vaughn decided to partner with me on the spot. Both restaurants rely on my supply of seafood, with regular weekly orders. As I stepped out of the restaurant, I lit a cigarette. Across the street, there was noise coming from Gu Xing's stall. There were boxes of dead seafood lying on the ground, and customers were shouting angrily at the counter. Tobias whispered to me, "Boss, Gu Xing's refrigeration equipment is experiencing frequent failures. The temperature control is out of control, and a large amount of inventory has been damaged and lost." I know all this very well. Unit No. 3's compressors are aging, and regular inspections are necessary. The condenser of Unit No. 2 has cracked, and it will shut down when the load becomes too high. During my time there last year, I managed to keep the maintenance costs below 3%. I'm fully aware of every problem with these machines. Gu Xing only knows how to do math and build relationships with people. He has no idea about equipment maintenance at all. The stalls still seem to be operating normally, but inside they're completely broken. Soon, my daily cash flow steadily exceeded 120,000. Gu Xing refused to let things go easily. He spent money to hire someone to interfere with the navigation route at the South Wharf. His offer was even higher than mine, by 20%. Upon receiving the news, I invited 3 captains to dinner. During the meal, I didn't mention anything related to bidding for resources. Instead, we discussed the challenges of making a living at sea. Solon was worried about his son's college tuition fees in the coming year, and he was in financial trouble. Oren's wife was hospitalized, and she needed a quick fix to cover her expenses. "I'll do it myself. I'll cover the tuition fees for Solon's son. The remaining payments can be deducted gradually. I'll immediately transfer 5,000 to Orson as an emergency fund. Tell him not to rush to pay it back." The captains were deeply moved. Alaric raised his glass. "No matter how high the price is, we won't sell this item. You're a trustworthy friend." At that moment when we clinked our glasses together, I was finally able to stabilize the supply of goods. Gu Xing failed in his attempt to recruit replacements. He began spreading rumors, claiming that my supply sources were smuggled goods, which violated quarantine regulations, that our cold storage facilities were operating illegally, and would soon be closed down, and that I obtained my supplies through private connections, making my position unstable. The rumors were carefully crafted, and many customers called to verify the information. I didn't panic at all. I took photos of the business license, quarantine certificates, and the exclusive supply agreement, and sent them directly to the group of merchants. The rumor immediately disappeared without any effort. But Gu Xing still refused to stop. He reported anonymously to the market management department, claiming that the refrigeration conditions in my cold storage facilities did not meet standards. The management personnel conducted a surprise inspection and ordered me to suspend operations until further verification. At the beginning of my business operation, I installed all my equipment according to the highest standards. All fire safety, isolation, and environmental protection requirements were met. The staff spent 2 hours searching the equipment, but couldn't find any problems at all. So, they had to return without achieving anything. Tobias lowered his voice. "Someone saw that it was Gu Xing who went to the office to submit the reports." "As expected," I replied indifferently. All those trickery failed to hurt me in the slightest. That afternoon, my daily cash flow officially exceeded the level reached by Gu Xing during his peak period. The news spread throughout the entire aquatic products market. In the past, Gu Xing tried to suppress me by renting local fishing boats at high prices and storing a large amount of goods. However, as customers continued to leave, the goods became overstocked and couldn't be sold. The creditors even came to our shop to try to block our stalls. Unit No. 3 malfunctioned again. A whole box of emperor crabs was destroyed, resulting in a direct loss of 80,000. Those machines were the ones that I spent 36 hours repairing. Now, it's no longer my turn to save them. Not long after, Vaughn introduced another large chain restaurant owner, who managed to generate over 70,000 new orders every week. Gu Xing's booth losses have surged to 15%, and many of his old customers are leaving him one by one. Tobias, holding the financial records in his hands, excitedly told me that the net profit for this month is expected to exceed 500,000. At midnight, as I was leaving the stall, I saw Gu Xing struggling to fix the malfunctioning No. 3 unit. He had no knowledge at all about electrical wiring, and was completely confused and flustered. I stood outside for a while, then turned around and left. Seeing that the previous methods were ineffective, Gu Xing decided to launch a fierce price war. He reduced the price by 20%, and then sold the products at a loss. Soon, merchants flocked to his stall in large numbers. Tobias asked me whether I wanted to join in the price cuts. I shook my head. He wants to drag me into a costly battle, forcing me to either pay damages or lose customers. I can't go along with his methods. My cost of obtaining goods is 10% lower than his. Moreover, our supply sources are stable, so there's no need to compete on price. I choose to take a different approach, purchasing insulated boxes, forming a dedicated delivery team, and upgrading our entire service package. We strictly control the quality of our products, ensuring zero losses. The delivery time is accurate to half an hour. I will maintain the original selling price, focusing on quality and compliance with commitments. At first, indeed, some individual traders were attracted by the low prices. But soon, problems became apparent. In order to maintain their profit margins, Gu Xing began purchasing cheap, low-quality seafood from unknown sources. Coupled with continuous failures in the refrigeration equipment, the rate of spoilage of the goods remained high. It became clear to the traders that, despite the 20% price reduction, they were actually losing money due to the high rate of spoilage. In just 5 days, merchants continued to come to me for more goods. They were willing to spend a little more money, in order to ensure stability and reliability. Vaughn gave positive feedback. He said that his friend tried Gu Xing's products, but suffered significant losses, so he decided to give up on them. Instead, he signed a long-term contract with me, with weekly orders exceeding 100,000 units. Gu Xing's store is constantly receiving returns. Just for compensation alone, the company has suffered a loss of over 100,000 yuan in just 2 days. This price war ended within just 10 days. The continuous losses from selling goods at low prices, combined with massive compensation payments, completely drained his cash flow. The availability of cheap goods further destroyed the reputation that he had built over the years. That night, my daily cash flow exceeded 200,000. Tobias estimated that the company's net profit for this month could reach 800,000. In a price war, it's not who can reduce prices the most that really matters. What matters is who can maintain quality and withstand the challenges until the end. Gu Xing thought that low prices could be enough to defeat me, but he didn't realize that in business, quality is the ultimate defense. At midnight, Gu Xing was surrounded by a pile of bills and returns. The phone kept ringing, all from creditors demanding payment. The sign on his stall creaked loudly in the evening wind, looking dilapidated and desolate. Everyone in the market was saying that Gu Xing wouldn't be able to make it through this month. Australian lobsters have arrived. A key client has placed an additional order worth 50,000 units. I continue to expand steadily. Soon, the largest purchasing entity in the market, Mr. Thorne from Jingding Hotel, will organize a wedding banquet for his son with 300 tables of food. The huge order for seafood will determine who will secure the leading position in the market. Over the years, Thorne has always collaborated with Gu Xing, and their relationship has been quite good. Gu Xing seized this last straw of hope, and invested all his resources to find sources of supply everywhere, in hopes of turning things around. On Friday afternoon, bad news arrived. Tobias ran back to the cold storage room, breathing heavily. "Boss! There's a huge problem with Gu Xing's supply. Half of the used in the wedding banquet are dead, and a large number of Australian lobsters also spoiled. Mr. Thorne is extremely angry. He requires a replacement of the supplies within a specified time frame, otherwise, all cooperation will be terminated." I looked towards the other side of the street. Gu Xing's stall was in complete chaos. He was frantically searching for substitutes for everything he needed. But it was Friday night, and the wedding banquet was set to begin at noon the next day. There was simply no time to bring in any new supplies. The local merchants all harbored resentment towards him for having monopolized the supply of goods at high prices in the past. No one was willing to help him. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Mr. Thorne personally arrived at the market, his face pale as a deathly shade. He questioned Gu Xing harshly about how the supplies for the 300 tables of wedding banquets were obtained. Gu Xing was sweating profusely, pleading desperately, promising that everything would be arranged properly. Thorne issued a final ultimatum, by 10 p.m. That night, all high-quality fresh seafood must be prepared. Otherwise, all communication between them would be cut off. Thorne turned around, ready to leave. When he saw me standing at the entrance of the cold storage, his steps stopped, and he walked straight towards me. Lu Yuan, do you currently have any fresh products available? 50 emperor crabs, 80 pounds of Australian lobsters, and 100 pounds of coral trout, all of the highest quality, fresh. Can these be delivered to the hotel before 10 o'clock? I quickly checked the inventory, and there is not enough stock available. But Alaric just received a new batch of goods, and time is running out. It's a gamble, but it's worth trying. I can handle this. I will inspect the goods first to ensure that the quality meets standards. This is my son's wedding, and there must be no mistakes at all. Thorne spoke with great seriousness. I immediately called Alaric to arrange the delivery of the goods. With Tobias by my side, we rushed off towards the South Wharf. We arrived there at 7:30 p.m. We checked each item carefully to ensure that everything was intact and in good condition. After loading the goods onto the truck, we rushed back to the city center without any delay. At 9 p.m., I returned to the market. Together with Tobias, we rushed to sort and pack the goods. At 9:40 p.m., the refrigerated truck was ready, and we rushed off towards Jean Ding Hotel. We arrived there exactly at 9:55 p.m. Thorne stayed behind in the kitchen, personally opening the boxes to check everything. The emperor crab was fresh and intact, the lobster's tentacles were intact as well, and the trout had a bright red gill color. His tense face finally relaxed, and he patted my shoulder gently. Lu Yuan, you saved my place. It's something that comes within my responsibilities. The wedding is over. Now I would like to discuss long-term cooperation with you. I returned to the market at 11 o'clock at night. Gu Xing's stall was brightly lit, with a pile of dead seafood all over the floor. He sat down in the middle of the goods, but his phone couldn't be used anymore to contact Thorne. Tobias said bluntly that with the golden cauldron lost, Gu Xing was basically finished. On the second day of the wedding banquet, I attended the event to oversee the supply of seafood. The dishes were well received by the guests. During the banquet, many wealthy merchants asked Thorne for my name. In the afternoon, Thorne invited me to his office. Gu Xing has been working with me for many years. Eventually, his performance became terrible. He became arrogant, and whenever something went wrong, he always found excuses. This wedding made me realize many things. He spoke solemnly. Starting from today, all the seafood served in all the hotels under my management will be supplied by you. There are at least 200,000 orders per week. Can you ensure a stable supply? I assured him about the South Wharf supply chain, promising zero loss in cold chain delivery. The deal was finalized on the spot, and the formal contract will be signed on Monday. After achieving success with the Golden Award, my daily cash flow significantly exceeded 300,000 yuan, breaking through Gu Xing's previous record. Many food and beverage business people attended the wedding banquet, and they all contacted me to discuss possible partnerships. Everyone in the entire seafood market knows that Lu Yuan has risen to prominence. Gu Xing tried to visit Thorne that day, but was turned away. The wedding banquet was ruined, resulting in a direct loss of 300,000 yuan. The most important customer was completely lost, and the cash flow was completely broken. Coupled with the losses caused by the price war, the heavy debt became too much to bear. The old refrigeration equipment was beyond repair, and the stalls were on the verge of collapse. After that, I signed intention agreements with several high-end restaurants. I now own 5 major chain restaurants, and our weekly orders exceed 400,000 units. I went to Nanmouty to negotiate the addition of 2 more ships to ensure adequate supply. At dusk, he returned to the market and saw a group of creditors gathered around Gu Xing's stall. He looked exhausted and haggard, having aged 10 years since last time. All of his bank loans had been rejected, leaving him with a total debt of over 1,600,000. Tobias said that Gu Xing was in a situation with no way out left. But I know that simply holding on to major clients is not enough. It's the small, independent merchants who truly form the foundation of the market. I plan to integrate resources together. I invited more than a dozen merchants who have previously received my assistance to come to the cold storage office. I served tea to them and explained my plan, to create a supply alliance centered around my cold storage facilities. We would share supplies together, have unified distribution systems for cold chain products, and establish uniform pricing policies. In return, we would share in the profits. All the goods are purchased by me personally. I ensure that the quality is guaranteed, and the prices are kept as low as possible. My cold chain system helps to reduce overall losses for everyone involved. As for the profit share, I get 30%, while you get 70%. Merchant Huang spoke up and asked questions. Lu Yuan, we trust you. But who can guarantee that after you become successful, you won't monopolize the market and exploit us? Given my situation, if I wanted to exploit you all, I wouldn't have to sit here and discuss anything related to forming an alliance today. I formed this alliance with the hope that everyone would share in the profits, rather than having one person benefit at the expense of everyone else. The fate of Gu Xing is right before our eyes. In the end, success depends on strength, not on past favors. After some discussion, everyone nodded in agreement. Lu Yuan, we trust you. That night, 13 merchants officially signed an alliance agreement. From now on, all goods will be circulated through my channels, with my cold chain system ensuring minimal losses. Tobias couldn't hide his excitement. Boss, we've managed to control the market channels. As the alliance operates smoothly, deliveries are on time, with almost no losses. The profits of the merchants have increased significantly, and word of mouth has spread everywhere. Gu Xing tried to recruit merchants from within the alliance, but he was mocked in public. Alaric informed me that 2 new ships have arrived at the port, with a large quantity of goods waiting to be shipped. I have taken over all of those goods. Gu Xing's stall is barely attracting any customers. Debt collectors constantly come knocking at his door, threatening to sue him if he doesn't pay back the debts. His total debt has already exceeded 1.5 million. Even if he sells his stall, it won't be enough to cover all his debts. The market is bustling with activity, but Gu Xing's stall is completely deserted. Everyone says that now, the real person who has control over the market is me. 2 weeks have passed, and the alliance is operating smoothly. My daily cash flow now exceeds 400,000, and I control 60% of the market share. Just at that moment, Alaric called us urgently. The super typhoon will make landfall in 3 days. All fishing boats must return to port to avoid the storm. For at least a week, there will be no fresh seafood available on the market. I immediately confirmed that today was the last day for fishing out at sea. I rushed to the southern dock with Tobias, made a quick decision, and spent 300,000 in cash to purchase all the available goods. Alaric repeatedly reminded everyone of the extremely powerful nature of the typhoon. At 11 o'clock at night, the goods were transported back to the cold storage facility, and they were sorted and stored overnight. We also made sure to check the backup generators carefully, to ensure that they would still be able to operate in case of a power outage. The next day, panic over the typhoon swept through the market, and the price of seafood increased by 30%. I instructed Tobias to ensure that Alliance merchants were supplied at the original price, while the remaining goods could be sold at market prices. We must avoid any attempts to inflate prices artificially. The members of the Alliance feel secure, and they become more convinced of my abilities. The other traders try to buy our products at high prices, but I still prioritize maintaining my own network of partners.